One of the big talking points of 2024 is hyperlocal, but also regulations. How can you combat unfair regulations that are sweeping not only your towns, your cities, but Europe, America, Australia, and further afield? The more that the short-term rental industry grows, the more that the hotel world and further afield will try and put a cap on the growth. Because for every stay in a short-term rental, you can guarantee the hotel world are getting annoyed at that. Now, how do we combat unfair regulations? How can we showcase that we are professional hosts, professional business owners, and not Airbnb charlatans as the media is painting this picture across the internet? One person and one company that are doing that is David Krauss of Rent Responsibly. I've known David for a couple of years now. We met recently at the Verma event in America, and I was very lucky to grab him for 20 minutes to talk about Rent Responsibly, but also the brand new Rent Responsibly network. So out of all the podcasts I've done, the 711, 712 that we're at right now with this episode, this is one of the most important that you need to listen and watch this year, 2024. Because if you haven't got regulations in your area, they are coming. And you better believe it. Without further ado, let me hand you over to Mr. David Krauss, who's going to give you a super quick intro and we get stuck into it.
My Boostly friends, this is your boy Dave Krauss reporting live from Fort Worth, Texas. I am a short-term rental owner and host at heart. That's where I got my start in this space. Like many of you, I didn't go to university to become what I am today, but fell in love with the industry upon entry. Just loved meeting the people, of course, supporting myself and ultimately my family was just a little piece of magic that I didn't know I would grow up to discover. And once I did, I wanted more. I was obsessed, right? Like everybody else. If you're listening to this podcast, I know you're obsessed and there's nothing wrong with that. But really what brought me here today to talk with you, Mark, is the journey I went on after somebody threw a party at my short-term rental. So I was running about 9 short-term rentals. I was the king of short-term rentals in Dallas, Texas at the time. And had this great reservation. It seemed like there's no spidey sense going on. Didn't seem like anything was wrong. But come to find out after the guests left that they threw a massive party, which is, if it's happened to you, I feel for you. It happened to me. This was 2015. And I immediately looked just like, any other problem solver for a solution to that problem. And there was no such technology or method other than going and putting your ear with a cup to the door to see how loud it was, which is impossible. You'd never do that. So I found a friend who could build me a sensor that would ultimately help me monitor the property. So that turned into Noise Aware. You may have heard of Noise Aware. If you haven't, you can check it out. There's other noise monitors out there, but I started Noise Aware after this party. And after a couple of years, 4 to be exact, of talking about decibels and noise and nuisance issues and community and party houses, which, by the way, is a really fun thing to talk about for 4 years. I was done with decibels. I'd already gotten the claim to fame of being the international party pooper, which again is not something I wanted to grow up to be, but it happened anyways. After Noise Aware, I started to notice and to really look inside the industry and say, what is missing that I'm perfectly suited to try to tackle, to really focus on? And what I realized is the regulatory issues just were mushrooming. They were blowing up. They were, finding small towns, big towns, urban environments in the US where I am, international, all over the world. These regulatory issues were coming up. And because I'd been talking about noise, nuisance, party houses, community relations, I realized I knew a lot more than the average person. And the key to our future really laid in how we as a community, as an industry, get organized, get involved, get into advocacy, show up to these conversations professionally in an organized way. And so Rent Responsibly, where I'm the CEO and co-founder now, is the community building and education platform for our industry. And we help local communities, local alliances, local associations.
Can you just talk about the virtual events that you host annually and why you do them, and sort of the things that you get on the back end of doing these?
Sure. And thank you for attending that virtual event, Mark. We welcome one and all. So as a community building and education, underscoring the education piece, we do national events and international in that case. Events where we focus oftentimes on a value that we have internally. So sometimes it's community, sometimes it's sustainability, things of that nature. And we really dive deep. We get all the brightest minds on the subject into a good run of show. Sometimes there are single webinars on one particular issue, like a safety issue or something of that nature. And then sometimes we have our summits, which last year we did two of them, and we'll have 2 days of virtual, it's a virtual conference. So we'll talk about everything short-term rentals, but also how to build sustainable organizations, how to avoid burnout, how to take care of employees and all sorts of stuff that we as entrepreneurs, we need to find the information, but we also need it for our industry.
There's so many people who come into your world, whether it's online or you meet in person. What would you say is one of the most common mistakes that you see most hosts make when they're coming into this industry? So they're coming to speak to you, say, David, at the event. What do you see one of the most common mistakes that they're all making, especially when it comes to what we're talking about here, which is like renting responsibly, regulations, etc.?
That's a great question. The first thing that comes to mind is that folks don't know how powerful they actually are and how powerful their voice is at the local level. What I say is you are already an expert in short-term rentals if you have been a host. You're already an expert in short-term rentals and you have the voice to share that if you are local somewhere. And everybody is local somewhere, and everybody, if you're listening to this podcast, generally speaking, you've been a host. Therefore, you are overqualified to be an advocate or to be involved in the broader conversation. And it doesn't have to be in City Hall. There are many ways to get involved, and we need, as an industry, I hate to be up here saying you need to do this, we all should be doing that. This is not a preachy type subject. It's actually a community conversation. Is how do you show up to our community? How do you show up and contribute to any community? Mark, I know you have a massive and thriving community. It's, you got to encourage people to show up and bring their story and bring their expertise. But in the world of the regulatory conversation, there are 5 ways you can contribute. So they're the 5 T's of advocacy. You have your time, you can contribute time, volunteer, be on a board, things of that nature. You have treasure, you can contribute financially. You have talent. If you're a great marketer, you have a social media following, that's your talent. You can bring that to bear. The 2 most people don't know about, which I think are the most important, are your ties. So your connections into the community. Are you a realtor? Are you neighbors with the city council member? Things like that. And the last is your testimony, which is where I started. You can tell your own story. That is a powerful story. Nobody really knows not only your story, but when you put your story out there and tell people about it, it's really cool. People think what we do is really freaking cool. And it's the only way we build respect and we get credibility is telling our story. We're the people who we've been looking for. We're the people we've been waiting for. It's our time to tell our story and not let other people do that for us. So in summation, people don't know the power that they have to tell their own story and how powerful that really is.
And at the end of the day, your net worth is your net worth. So the more that you can build that in your local area, then the more that it will power to you in the long run. But especially as well, what I know to be true, especially with community, is with regulations that are happening all the time, right? They're popping up all over the world at the moment. But the areas that have given themselves a fighting chance have got a professional set of hosts, property management companies at a local level that can go together, go to their local MP, go to the elector, like member of parliament, the elected official, and showcase that, listen, this Airbnb brush that the media's been tarnishing us, the whole community with, is not true. We are a group of professional hosts. This is us. This is our network. And we provide X, Y, and Z. And this is all of the safe and secure things that we do behind the scenes. And it's, if there wasn't those communities, then there would be much more unfair regulation brought in on a mass. So, Mr. David Krauss, thank you so much. And everybody, thanks for tuning in. This is episode 712. I believe we said it before. It's a lot of episodes, a lot of years of doing this. Free podcast every single week. Make sure you go and subscribe on Boostly. On the YouTube, we've just passed 10,700 subscribers. So thank you to everybody that's jumped on there. And if you're listening on the Spotify or Apple or wherever that is, thank you very much. Keep spreading the word. This is definitely one that I need for you to share. So as well as liking and commenting, as you all do really well, this is the one where you hit the share button and go and drop it into a Facebook group, go and drop it into your LinkedIn groups and all of that, and just to draw more awareness, because it's awareness of amazing education like this that is going to help save our industry. So with that being said, thank you so much. And we'll be back any day now with another episode. Cheers now.
Having a blast, gonna get it on the Boostly podcast. Boostly like Bruce Lee, cause it's so hard and the T is loose leaf. Making up those rhymes, don't write it, just do it loosely.